Liaka!
Hi and welcome to the Betway Beat, brought to you by SoccerBeat, and it's Peter the Toy, and I've got our guest today, the one and only, a proper legend. There's a lot of people call themselves legends. That word's used way too easily. This is a proper legend, Shaun Bartlett. How are you, Shaun?
Hi, Peter. Yeah, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. How's it feel like being a proper legend?
A proper legend. I don't even know what's a legend, to be honest. I was blessed enough to have a football career and a good one at such. And yeah, I think that's obviously, terms that people give you legends. And obviously, when it comes also to reputation, that's people's opinion of you.
I agree. I think a lot of people can say they were ex-professional players, but very few people can say they were legends. So I think we use
Mm.
the word in South Africa, legend, a little bit too loosely. But anyway, so what we're going to do, guys, Shaun and I are going to first talk about what's happening locally in the game presently, and then we're going to talk about Shaun's career. And lastly, we'll go through a few fun stuff. Shaun will tell us about some of the best players he played with and some of his toughest
Mm.
opponents and so on. But Shaun, let's get right into it. Today's football. Something that, as an ex-player myself, has intrigued me very much. And it's a question that hasn't been answered. And you are probably the perfect person to answer this question. If you look at the Bafana side that won the AFCON, and you look at that period of football, that team had basically, I think, I think there was about 11 players that played at top
Mm.
leagues out of that squad of 13, 14 players. They played in top leagues, in the English Premier League, in La Liga,
Yeah.
in Serie A. I mean, I can name the players, but you know them anyway. But yet you look at our football today, the pitches are better, the money's better, everything's better, the fields are
Mm.
better, yet we've got no one playing in any top league. And the coaching's got better, we would say. What is the reason, in your opinion, and you having played locally and overseas in two continents, America and Europe,
Mm.
what is the reason why we are not producing players that are playing regularly in La Liga, Serie A, and the English Premier League?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, there are two factors involved. Obviously, the one is for the better of football in South Africa, where the league itself have increased salaries and players are looked after a little bit better than when we were playing. And on the other side, I think that desire has disappeared from players to want to go abroad. It's not easy. Somebody asked me yesterday, it's not easy going away from home, and then after a month or two, you're homesick, and you can't take it anymore. So for me, those are factors that plays a massive role in you succeeding wherever you are, whether it be America, whether it be Scandinavia, in Europe. Um, I think those are small things, but it's up to the individual how successful they want to be. I always wanted to be in the Premier League, even though I took the longer route via America. But it prepared me for when I got to the Premier League. I knew exactly as to what I need in order to succeed and sustain that lifestyle. I think a lot more players nowadays a little bit more comfortable, I would say, playing in South Africa, earning a decent salary, and also the margins. It can range from 10,000 to 1.5 million a month,
Yes.
and that's what makes players a little bit more comfortable, not wanting to move. But if they're clever, they can actually earn that in a week if they go to a league in Europe or somewhere else. But it means not not many people are going to know you in that particular country or the league until you prove yourself.
There's 2 points that I want to raise on that, Shaun. First of all, well, number one, South African players are more comfortable and very comfortable
Yeah,
in South Africa. So they go, why should I sacrifice myself? And you've answered that.
yeah,
But I would
mm,
imagine then the standard in our league should be
mm,
exceptionally high then because of our best players are playing here as opposed to going to play overseas. Would you say that our league standard justifies that? Does the standard of the league, to you, who's played in America, in Europe, and in England, do you feel that,
mm,
and you've coached as well, do you feel that we are getting the benefit of all our top
mm,
players staying in South Africa as opposed to going overseas? I'm talking not from Bafana, I'm talking about actually from
yeah.
the PSL's point of view. That are we getting that benefit? Do you see that improvement in the standard?
Well, the top players also need to be spread around with all the clubs. And I think everybody knows in this country, most of the top players is with one particular club, and that doesn't really help. Like what is, for instance, stagnating maybe the improvement of our goalkeepers. I think 80% of our South African goalkeepers are at one club.
Yeah,
You're
very
talking
good.
Ronwood Williams, Jody February, you're talking Peterson at one point was Goss. So all those players is at one club, and three of those players didn't play for a long time. We haven't even seen them anywhere. So I think that doesn't really help the quality of our league. Everything else has improved, like you've mentioned. We've got great stadia, we've got infrastructure, we've got financial backing now, also from companies into the league. Uh, but it's not really good when one team wins the league 7 years in a row. Obviously that
Mm.
shows you where the quality is at this moment in time. All the other clubs are playing catch up in that particular way.
Yeah, and that's not healthy. Even in Spain, where there's at least three clubs that can win that league, and in the
Yeah,
UK, there's five clubs that come in the top five, and Man City are
mm,
pushed to the very limit. Whereas Sundowns walked away with the league last year, and you basically,
yeah,
not many people would bet against it. Tell me, what
mm,
do you think then? Could South African football learn from EPL, La Liga, from Europe? What could the football learn? How do we solve this? What could we learn from you? Had a lot of over experience. You've just come back from Charlton again, which I
mm,
want to talk to you about. What can we learn
yeah.
as a PSL and as club owners? What can we do to change this? Is there a law change that we can make?
Mm. Well, I think we've got to level the playing field in some way to give everybody a more fair chance of competing to win the league. I think when it comes to financial backing, certain clubs have more than the others, which sometimes maybe you can't obviously run away from. But not everybody's got obviously the resources in order to get the best players or better players at their clubs, and that's not going to help them to actually compete for the league. I know you're saying in England there's like five teams that compete for the league every year, but it's very seldom that you'll find in the PSL that the bottom of the log, will beat Sundowns or top of the log. In the EPL,
Hmm.
in the Premier League, that's quite normal sometimes. We saw surprise result with Liverpool at home losing to Forest. And you don't get that much of those results in our league anymore. Before it used to be the same. Cape Town teams, fighting above their weight for a long time and getting a little bit of success. Uh, and nowadays, obviously, you see Stellenbosch doing similar things, but they've also, they've got a great academy structure. If you don't have the financial backing, then you've got to have like what they've done, put a academy structure in place that just produces a conveyor belt of players, to be honest, because they've sold what 6, 7 players this season, but they still end up making the MTN8 final, which I believe will probably be one of 2 or 3 finals they make this year if they don't win it.
Mm. So, Sean, that you make a very good point there, talking about youth development and talking about
Mm,
having resources to compete with Sundowns. If you look at Kaizer Chiefs, I mean, there's no
yep,
reason why Kaizer Chiefs should have probably the best youth in the country because most young players would want to
yep,
play for Chiefs prior to Sundowns. So
mm,
they should have a conveyor belt better than Stellenbosch. And secondly, they do earn massive money in sponsorship. They get massive crowds. They should be able to compete with somebody like Sundowns to a greater extent than anybody else. You've been at that club as a player. You've been at that club as an assistant coach.
yep.
Why do you think they've fallen so far behind, although there seems to be a revival this season? Why do you think they initially
Mm.
fell so far behind?
Well, you need a little bit of continuity. And I'm not saying this because obviously at the time, Ernst Middendorp and myself, we brought a little bit, obviously, stability to the club. We competed until the last day of the season. And then for some reason, you're no longer allowed to continue that particular job or to build on that. And I think when it comes to coaching staff or even playing staff, there's too much rotation as far as not getting the success. And then suddenly, no, we need a new manager. We need to get different players. And that's not healthy at all. They've got a good academy setup. Obviously, maybe not producing as much for the first team as they should, which is a fair, I think, assessment of the academy. But when it comes to the club itself, and you mentioned obviously fans, but let's be realistic. When is the only time they get fans into the stadium? It's always only been the derby, the Pirates game. I think the Sundowns game a couple of weeks ago was probably the first time in years that you've seen so many people at a Sundowns Chiefs game. And I put that down to one thing: results. Football is still a business
Yeah.
of results. You cannot promote your brand, your company, your football club on social media or selling shirts or in a way that you think it's going to benefit. It doesn't work. You've got to. you've got to get the results. The same thing with our rugby team. They can't like Rassi said, you can't give people hope if you lose every week. What hope are they going to
Yeah.
have? Got to win. You've got to win trophies. You've got to win games, and that will give people a little bit more hope. And I would say the same with the Chiefs franchise or club is the results will speak for itself. And sometimes you won't even have to do many things because when you win games, people will automatically come and back you, and they'll come to the stadium in any possible way in order to show their support for you.
And Bafana is showing that right now. Shaun, let me just let's look at an interesting thing. You've seen this in Europe. So again, you're the best person to answer this question. You've been in America where the league was developing and they were trying to attract
Yep.
crowds. You've been in Europe where there's a tradition of people going to games. In South Africa,
Yeah.
when I was playing in South Africa, I can tell you now, when Atlantic or Cape Town City, when we went to go play in Witbank, the stadium was filled with genuinely filled with Witbank supporters,
Mm.
Witbank Black
Mm.
Aces. Same as when we play Amazulu. Why
Yeah.
are South Africa? Why does the PSL not attract fans to games other than when Chiefs are playing or Pirates are playing? Why don't we have that home support? I mean, you've been to Cape Town Spurs, you've been to TS Galaxy. Why? I mean, Charlton competes with a host of clubs in London. There must be 10, 12 clubs in London across all the divisions. Charlton has a strong fan base. All the clubs in London have a strong fan base. They're not all going to watch Arsenal and Spurs or Man United on TV. What are we doing wrong in South Africa that we haven't created a home fan base? I've got my opinions, but I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, I think obviously one of it we've got a lot more sport on television. Social media is another aspect, obviously, as far as getting the content out for particular clubs and leagues. And then you mentioned obviously tradition, and that's something I think that's just going to last forever, especially in England. You mentioned obviously me going to Charlton last week. They are so-called third tier club, League One, that's below Championship and the Premier League. But there was 18,000 fans at the game, and that's still little because their capacity for the stadium is 32,000. But the results has not been going their way. So obviously the fan expectancy wasn't that great. They played Birmingham last week, top of the table, and Mark Fisher and myself, we met with obviously players, former players, and directors of the club, and nobody, I promise you, nobody gave themselves a chance against Birmingham. And Mark and myself, who comes from South Africa, we had to like be a little bit more positive and say, come on, guys, you've got to turn the season at some point. What better way to do it at Birmingham? And they ended up probably putting in one of the best performances, won their first game in 5, and suddenly everything changed, and even to the fact where they said, "Oh, you and Mockfish have to come every week now because you brought us a bit of luck." But I've got it. I had to change my also view of coaching. Like even one of the directors said, like at halftime is like these guys, they're nowhere in the game. We're dominating, but Birmingham will probably get one chance and they'll end up winning this game 1-0. Then I said, it's things like that I had to change because if I keep saying things like that to my players, they're going to start believing it after a while. And you've got to change your words. Your words it means a lot because once you've said it, you can't retract it. It's out there, and it will have a negative or a positive influence. So I had to also in my coaching career change that up, and that's what I did on Saturday at Charlton. I'm like, guys, you've got to stay positive. If you want to have promotion, we're not even talking about Premier League. You're talking about the next step, which is Championship. If you want to get there, you've got to make sure, obviously, you have the right people around and you speak the right things because you can't. It's nice to embrace us. It's nice to appreciate us, but you've got to move forward. You've got to accept what's coming in the future, and sometimes that's probably more difficult to accept than leaving the stuff behind that you achieved in the past.
Yeah. And I think that just actually goes right back to your statement about why South African clubs are not attracting crowds is that we don't respect
Mm.
tradition. And you going to Charlton
Yep.
was first of all, the clubs respecting tradition of what you and Mark did there. The fact that
Yep.
they're getting 18,000 a game when they're in third tier would be a Motsepe League here in South Africa is because
Theoretically, yeah.
those clubs,
Mm.
British football and European football, understand tradition. And I believe our club
Mm.
owners and our PSL don't understand tradition. But that's the story for another time. We're going to take a short break, Shaun, from our spot, and then we'll come back with the
Yeah.
second half.
You see, it was this game that turned boys into giants. Even today's aces inherited the name from those who came before. Usabutha lo mulilo, buza kwabaziyo, bazokutshela. Lisegazini, forever.
Betway is giving customers a chance to win big with their 4 to score free weekly prediction. Simply predict the first teams to score in 4 Betway Premiership matches, and you could win 50,000 Rand. Scan the QR code on screen now to enter. Get way more with Betway. Standard T's and C's apply.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm with Shaun Bartlett. We've spoken about local football. Let's talk about, Shaun, your career right now. It's an incredible career as a player and a coach. I mean, you know it yourself when coming from Kensington. I don't think for 1 second when you were
And
16
I
that
don't
you'd
hear
be here thinking, goodness me, your entire career, top player overseas, top player in South Africa, African nations champion, and an incredible coaching career as well. And it's not over. I just want to talk about my favorite moment, and that's when Bafana won the African Cup of Nations. And that goal you scored against Ghana, I thought the game against Ghana was an incredible game. We beat them 3-0, if you remember, I'm sure you remember correctly. That game,
Yep.
I felt, was one of the best performances by any team ever in South Africa. What did you guys think after that game? I mean, that was almost like the final. What did you guys think? What did Clive say? How did you feel?
Yeah, I think there were much more belief that we can go all the way, obviously, and win this tournament. From the beginning, as a host nation, you're always going to be under a lot of pressure because you're hosting it and the fans itself in the stadium. But I think the backing from the coaching staff and obviously having Nelson Mandela at 90% of your games or most of the games, it just gives you more confidence going into those type of games. And I remember even the Ghana game for me was an opportunity to sort of get into the national team setup because Paul Masinga got injured. Myself and Mark Williams, obviously the fellow captain, started up front. And yeah, I'm gonna say this many people probably don't know this, but the goal I scored, obviously, it was a long ball from Lucas Radebe, who still up to this
Correct. I remember
day,
it.
who still up to this day believes it was a pass and not a clearance. I said, you were under pressure, you just kick the ball forward. And luckily I was young enough to use my speed, hold of the defender, bounce it off my knee, hit the volley. But he's telling everybody that was probably the best pass of his career. And I'm like, okay, Lucas, whatever, whatever pleases you. But yeah, I think that was the best clearance in your whole career, obviously, being under pressure. But it was a great day,
Sure.
you know.
Sorry, I want to interrupt you for
Mm,
1 second. I want to tell the viewers because they probably don't know.
yeah,
That was a magnificent goal. I remember standing up in my living room when you scored. It was absolute, and I still remember it forever. But I want to tell everybody out there, Shaun scored what was voted the goal of the season in the UK. We hit a volley from across from the. Only
yeah.
Paulo Di Canio scored a goal like that. It was an unbelievable goal. You must lie in bed and dream about that.
No. And you know what's sometimes the best thing? It's like 23 years later, and then on social media
Exactly.
you get maybe on the 1st of April. Or Charlton loved doing this. When the 1st of April, on this day 2001, Shaun Bartlett scored the goal of the season, and to reminisce and still be remembered so long after you've left, it's unbelievable. But yeah, that's without a doubt the biggest accolade, individual accolade I could have achieved in my football career. And again, and this is for the younger players, younger viewers also out there that wants to get to the next level. That goal could only happen because of hard work. You know, the left foot volley, and you hear a lot of commentators nowadays saying, "Oh, he didn't hit the target because it was with his weaker foot." I'm always of a different opinion because I think as a professional, you've got to work at the things you're not good at, but more so the things that you obviously want to improve. And the left foot is something, including my heading, I had to get better at. I had to work. And that's not working with the team, that's working on your own. And a lot of the new
Correct.
generation, they want to achieve success, but they don't want to put in the work. And then at some point, you ask yourself, but why am I not getting there? Why am I not getting to that level? Or why am I not doing this? Hard work will pay off. And everybody's said it so many times, hard work will always be talent. You can have the most unbelievable talent, but if you don't put in the effort, and Ronaldo is a perfect example also. That man is
Correct.
39 years old, but he still trains harder than most 18-year-olds. And that
Correct.
pretty much has sustained his lifestyle, his football career. But the lifestyle also is the thing. when I started coaching, the one thing I'm always saying to players, your lifestyle needs to suit your profession, not the other way around. Not because you're a footballer, I want to live nice. Your lifestyle needs to suit whatever you want to do in your career. So if it means not going out on a Friday night, you've got to do that because come end of the season, when you lift the trophy or you get promotion to the next level, your friends are sitting at home that went out and then Friday night, and you're the one celebrating, and they seeing you on TV. That is the investment I'm always talking about. I don't think that's a sacrifice. That's an investment because you get the reward at the end of that season or end of your career, where a lot of people can obviously, like you've mentioned before, appreciate what you've done in this game.
Correct. Shaun, the two observations I've made, when people always spoke to me about you as a player, I said there's one
Mm,
thing that you've got that very few players have got, and
mm,
when you said you worked on your heading, I
yeah,
in South Africa in particular, I said that watch Shaun Bartlett when the team he's playing for is defending free kicks and corner kicks. Won more balls,
yeah,
I think, were achieved clearing balls
yeah,
from corner kicks and defense, and for Bafana. I mean, that's gold for a coach. I mean,
yeah.
so working your heading actually really worked. And then
Mm,
another, just a quick question. I watched this morning. I watched probably your. I watched an hour of your goals, maybe 45 minutes of your goals. Made me
mm,
jealous at times. But the one thing I want to tell you, observation of the goals that are shown
mm,
on TV, do you know that probably 80% or even maybe higher are all
mm.
left-hand side far post?
You're not the first one to have said that. I've actually told my youngest son, oh no, sorry, my middle son is now in Dubai also playing. And he also asked me the same question, why is most of your goals at the second post? I said, watch the goals and see how everybody gets attracted to the near post. And when the ball doesn't get to them, who gets the ball? The person at the far post. So even him
Correct.
and my eldest son, Tyreek, who was a striker at Newcastle, I said, when you come from the second post, you can attack the ball. When you go near post and it goes over your head, there's nothing you can do about it. It's past. The
Correct.
opportunity is past. So the second post always gave me an opportunity. There's a few obviously I scored at first post because I would make the run from the second post. But the second post gives you an opportunity to attack the ball, and when somebody else misses it, you are always there to pick it up. And I think that's sometimes missing in our modern game from the younger generation. They don't anticipate that the defender is going to make a mistake or even their own teammate is not going to get the pass. I always anticipated those type of things, and that's probably one of the reasons where obviously you've got to be, like I say, you've got to be at the right place at the right time in order to score goals. But I always made those type of runs in order to benefit, obviously, getting on the end of a cross or even a pass that most people would have missed initially.
Yeah. But fun enough, they were also on the left-hand side far post more than on the right-hand
Yeah,
side far post. So it was quite interesting. Most of your runs must have come from left-hand side, which is interesting because normally a right-footed player would prefer to come on the right-hand side. But it's just an observation. Let's
no,
just
no.
go back
The,
to your
the
career. When you
The reason
sorry,
for that is obviously you make the run to the near post and you take the defender there, but the minute he goes to the near post, you
oh,
come to the other side, which ends up on the left hand side. And that's how I ended up most of my goals. And there's a few I can remember. A diving header at Spurs where I took the defender one way, went the other way. The volley, obviously, also, if you see, it was a let's say a semicircle run away from the defender. So it's all about creating the space you want to utilize. And sometimes, yeah, a lot of coaches nowadays will say it's a chess game. You've got to look at it in a way where this is the space I want to attack, but how will I get there in order not to be marked, or how do I lose my defender to attack the space? And yeah, small detail, but obviously it benefited my career.
but again, it's thinking and desire and commitment. Sean, let's so
Yeah.
now if you came to Charlton, you're one of the few players that have come from the highest level in Europe. Normally, we get
Mm,
players on their way down, 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 down. You came from the highest level, playing regularly at Charlton, and at the highest level, coming to Kaizer Chiefs, then definitely the biggest club in the country. What was the biggest difference you found? Um, what did you? I mean, did you go, "Wow, the coaching's different," or the stadiums are different, or what was the big when you sat back and you thought, "Goodness me, this is not what I expected." What was better?
mm.
What was worse? What was the biggest difference you found?
Oh, difference obviously for me was the attendance at Chiefs. You know, Chiefs is a massive brand. Um, to every week to play in front of sellout crowds during our days. was a massive eye opener for South African football. I think also from an infrastructure point of view, at the time, I think Chiefs were probably on par with Charlton where we were as far as the facilities were concerned. They're probably one of a few clubs in this country that's got facilities like that, so along with maybe Cape Town Spurs and Tuks, where I also coached the University of Pretoria. Yeah, not many clubs around in this country that got facilities and resources at their disposal like those clubs. And I think those were like maybe a select few. I think obviously at the time we had European coaches. My first year was with Ernst Middendorp. Second year was with Mushin Ertugrul. So the coaching for me wasn't that different in a sense where obviously I was used to it. The South African players obviously got a little bit, frustrated because it's something new that they had to adapt to. But at the end of the day, like I always maintain, when you have people coming into your country that can add value and improve the game, then you've got to appreciate it. And no disrespect, but I think that's sometimes where we lack as far as signing players outside the country is from. And you would know, Peter, in order for me to play in England, you've got to be a national team player that has played 70% of your games for the national team over the past 2 years. Look at how many players we signed that actually are internationals. We sign a lot of foreigners, but we don't sign very good internationals that can add value into the PSL.
Thanks for watching. That's end of the show. Don't forget to look out for part 2 for Shaun Bartlett coming up next week.
Liaka!